Again with these tiny pieces. Will I ever learn? Hello and welcome to the channel, where I turn video games into glass. I haven't played Among Us very much, but the premise of murdering people and blaming it on others sounds fun. So much so, that I've made stained glass versions of some of the crew and imposter characters. I use regular scissors to cut up to the paper pattern outline. Then I use 3-bladed scissors to cut out the actual pieces. All of these are pretty straightforward. One color for the body and one color for the face. I can't exactly replicate the shadows, so using just one color makes this simpler. The color for the face was a little difficult to find. It's like a mix of light blue and white. I didn't have any on hand, so I went to my local glass shop, and this was the best I could find. I had also hoped to use this blue, but it turns out none of the patterns fit what I bought. This orange has a subtle pattern to it, and this brown is completely opaque. This was the closest lime green I had, and this red is left over from a previous project. I glue the pattern onto the pieces of glass using Elmer's glue. I didn't include the tongue on the imposter, because it wouldn't be worth making it in glass. Mainly because the tongue is very long and skinny and would immediately break if I tried to make it. Again with these tiny pieces. Will I ever learn? No, I will not. I use a ring saw to cut the complicated or oddly shaped pieces that would be difficult or impossible to do by hand. The grinder is used to smooth out the cuts and refine the shape. I have a habit of leaving a little more glass on the edges than I should. It's mostly because I want a little more wiggle room when grinding. While it takes longer to grind, it is better than over grinding. Once I am happy with how the pieces fit, I wash off the paper and glue with water and dish soap. Copper foil is wrapped around the glass and pressed down with burnishing tools to ensure a snug fit. An X-Acto knife is used to cut the corners to fold the foil onto the edges, though I can sometimes get away with just folding the edges over. Before I foil complicated or odd shapes, I put small pieces of foil on each side to prevent the glass from showing if the foil splits. This is called saddling. Foil will split if a curve is too sharp and leave exposed glass. Though what counts as too sharp kind of depends. If I'm unsure if the foil will split, I saddle it anyway just to be on the safe side. An X-Acto knife is used to trim the saddled foil so it lines up with the regular foil. I use push pins to make sure the pieces won't move before I can tack them together. I use 60-40 tin lead solder to stick the pieces together, applying flux before I solder. The flux allows the solder to bond to the copper. Otherwise, the solder won't stick. Once all the pieces are tacked, I remove the push pins and continue soldering. Something that made making these a challenge are all the joints. Joints are not ideal because it can allow the glass to bend and eventually break. Each of these has at least one joint, with the imposter having 6 joints alone. To stabilize these joints, I could have made clear glass and soldered them so the joints couldn't move, but I thought that would look a little out of place, so instead I used copper wire. I bend the copper wire to match the angles for each joint, which is mostly just right angles. Here are all the joints I need to stabilize. Most are pretty simple, except for the imposter. Every single tooth is a joint and will bend over time. To fix this, I bend wire to run along the length between each tooth. That wasn't the hard part. What was hard was trying to solder them in place without the wire moving. I couldn't hold the wire with my fingers because the heat from the iron would travel through the wire and burn me. With the camera in the way, I had to come in from an awkward angle, and my setup for this isn't the best. I only showed the stabilization process for the dead body and the imposter, but you can see how much of a pain it was. The solder lines aren't exactly the cleanest, but it works. I make hooks using copper wire and attach them to be able to hang the piece once it is finished. Hooks are soldered in a joint because the weight of the piece is on the joint and not the edge. For smaller, lighter projects, you can get away with attaching hooks to the edge, but not on heavier, larger projects. Once everything cools down, I wash the finished project with water and dish soap, then dry it off. I use a patina made specifically for lead that will change the color from silver to black. The excess patina is rinsed off with water. The final thing I do is apply wax to slow down the natural oxidation process. If you want to know more, I have a tutorial playlist where I explain each step in more detail. Here are the crewmates and imposter finally finished. I really like each of the colors I ended up going with. Despite the difficulties with stabilizing the joints, these are relatively easy to make. I know there are other colors, but these are the ones I had access to. Like, share, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you would like to see me make down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all through the next pain.